Like the author is like, I understand, I'm self-aware what I'm doing, right? So I'm making fun of the genre we're in, I'm parodying it, but at the same time, I also make fun of myself, you know what I mean? And that's why it feels so genuine, and this anime, I think, perfect. So, I really want to play why I love anime, but this episode was the perfect episode, right? And I really mean that, and I also was playing what is Swedish dodgeball, man. I hope you're interested in that too. But first of all, I really emphasize what anime is so good for. That's because the anime, I feel, makes so perfectly fun, right, of itself, but also own genre. So it makes perfectly fun of like the sport anime tropes, but also shonen anime in general, because it's shonen anime, right? And this episode I felt so genuine. How they're making fun of it so much. It felt like so correct. However, as I told earlier, right, it also goes into its own tropes, or whatever you call it, right? So it both ridicules and makes fun of the kind of like classic sport anime in this episode, but at the same time, it also has all the sport anime tropes and takes them seriously. And then, of course, it actually fell style. But it seems like, I mean, it really combines the combination, right, of why the anime is so fantastic, because it has like, oh, I'm making fun of this anime, but also, how to say it? It's kind of like a person, right? Let's take a good person here. So this anime is Dodgeball, right? And you have, of course, the movie Dodgeball with Ben Stiller and so on. One of my favorite movies. So I love that movie. A person in that movie is the Huff. David Hasselhoff is in the movie, and he basically plays himself and makes fun of himself, right? And that's one reason why I like him as a single actor, right? So if you don't know who he is, he of course played, in Beach, like I've seen it in the Beach episode, okay? He of course played in Baywatch, Beach episode, I had a Beach episode TV, right? In Night Rider, so on. Of course, I Want Freedom and so on, right? But he's in Dodgeball the movie, and he basically makes fun of himself, right? And I really respect a person like that can joke with themselves, right? This anime, I feel, is so good, and I love SPyXfamily so much because it makes fun of its own genre, right? And sport genre, but it also makes fun of itself, right? You know what I mean? Like the author is like, I understand, I'm self-aware what I'm doing, right? So I'm making fun of the genre we're in, I'm parodying it, but at the same time, I also make fun of myself, you know what I mean? And that's why it feels so genuine and it feels so authentic, right? And it feels so goddamn good. Whereas some other animes, it's kind of like, yeah, like in a weaker anime, they just kind of make fun of another anime or parodying, right? But they don't have their own self-reflection or self-awareness. They're just like, those guys are idiots, but they don't, see it internally, right? And then it feels more mean and so on. This anime, I think, perfectly fits it, right? But anyway, guys, what do you think? You can write in this why the anime works, right? But I really think so, because it combines that feeling of really, really good comedy, but also that genuine, honest feeling, right? Of a person actually cares about doing so on, and has actual, how to say it, right? And believe a person. And what do you guys think about SPÖKBOLL, right? And I'll see it. It basically is dodgeball. The rules, people behind you is different. Basically, if you hit someone, they will then go behind. So usually you have like no people on the outside, or maybe like only one person, usually in the beginning. And then if you could hit on the interior, you're on the outside, right? But it's possible to get in again if you catch it. The rules on that is different depending on in tournaments and so on. But otherwise very similar. But as I said, you kind of have the obstacles, right? And you also, for that matter, usually have like a tiny bench or a wall in the middle, right? So instead of having an open area, the bare minimum, you always usually have like a short fence basically between the two sides. So you can't roll the ball or whatever. And then you're safe on the head and on the hands. So you're allowed to actually hit the ball with your head and so on and this stuff, right? So it's similar, but it's different. But I think mostly the environment changes. That's why I love this kind of stuff, because this makes fun of like Ashton the one, right? Kuroko on a basket and so on, where they have this like scene that's like, I'm doing my phantom drive, or actually, or Kuroko was like, I will throw the ball, it's like the phantom throw pass or whatever, right? It has this illusion strategy and so on. I also liked how the scene before, of course, was a straight up joke to Namek, right? With Dragon Ball. And of course, in Namek and Dragon Ball, they also introduced the Ginyu Force, the classic, I'm the Ginyu, and these guys are like, we're gonna have some kind of formation attacks. So it felt like it was a general Dragon Ball reference too, I guess, but like, this is so good, right? Because they are making fun of all the sport animes, I feel, at the same time. But also so good, right? Because it's like, besides that, but because it also does it itself, it works so well. Because later on, we see Anya basically straight up doing a slam dunk shit. It's like, I will throw the ball at this power, right? So they're also making fun of them, as I mentioned, but also, because this feels straight up like a typical, sport anime scene, right? Where the main cat's like, I got my own magical power, summoning the moon power, I can run, and so on. So I think that's really great, because that is how it combines, right? The strength of I said the parody strength, but also, yeah, actually doing it. That of course also fails though. So it really goes all over the place, right? That's what the anime really works so well because it's so goddamn funny, right? But also, as I mentioned, it's so goddamn funny, but also it feels genuine. Like, it feels that the author is like aware of what they're doing, right? And it's very important to point out. Because there's more tropes as well. I like that this guy had also done the classic, yeah, he's playing the research guy, you know. If you ever watch like Beyblade or whatever, like any kind of sport anime, right? Beyblade is a sport anime, it's going right there. They always have one guy with glasses too. It is like, oh, I've been doing the math, and if I throw the ball in this direction, it's gonna bounce 7 times. So they have all of that shit, right? And it also makes fun of martial art animes, you know? So I think about it, yes, it's a shonen training arc, right? But it's mostly, I would say, still something that you see in ranma, kenichi, or whatever, right? This is something that you can see in like this kind of hardcore training arc. And as Anya says too, she's like, I survived mom's training, so I am ready. That's kind of how Kenichi speaks, right? If you ever watched He's the Strongest Disciple Kenichi, he's mostly like, well, I get beaten, I get my ass kicked every day by my trainers, so I am a really good martial artist, right? Like, I survived the training. And if you ever seen Ranma, his father, Genma, or she, then, because in general, Genma throws him into cats, I'm spoiling it, whatever, it's very old manga, right? Genma takes Ranma, and puts fish on his body and throws him into like a house of cats, like a huge, abandoned like factory or whatever with a lot of thousands of cats in them. And then it's like, survive, boy! Literally throws him in with fish on him, like, survive the cats! And then Ranma learns like cat martial art because he has like avoid all the cats, right? so this to me feels a lot, you know, classic Ranma. It's like, what is it with yoga? They tie Yoga up and they throw rocks at him. They throw that huge rock at him. And it's like, destroy the rock or he's gonna die. So, yeah, I love Ranma, okay? So, this again, you know, is mostly a parody on like martial art tropes, right? Martial art anime. Training art from hell, it's called, right? Yeah. This is what the anime is so good, mate. Because it really does all the different, you know, tropes and so on. And it feels that the author really has read and seen every goddamn, you know, anime ever, right? And it really makes fun of all of them. But it feels so lovable, you know? I think the point is that the author feels like they've seen everything, right? But also the author is like genuinely loves it, right? So the author is like producing the shit, but also, again, loves what they're doing, right? Like, and loves those animes, you know? It's full of heart. It's like making fun of like Ranma in a mean way. It makes fun of Ranma in a heartful, you know. But let's want to talk a little about Swedish dodgeball, just for fun of it. Because I'm actually a master of Swedish dodgeball. And I am, you know. I'm never making jokes here, right? I actually play this in tournament arcs. It's called SPÖKBOLL in Swedish. So it's like this kind of. It's like one side of the field. They have the ball in the hand, you know, and so on. But as you can notice, they have this. This is called like a bygelhästor in Swedish. They have this thing in the way, right? So, Swedish spökboll is very similar to dodgeball, most of it, but the difference is that it's more anime. I make fun of it, but it's more anime, because imagine it has the same rules, right, as dodgeball. However, on the actual field, you're like, okay, well, we're gonna have this like huge wooden wall in the middle of it, right? And you're allowed to climb on that shit, if you can, right? You can flip on it, jump on it, and so on, yeah. You're allowed to get up top of it, and jump down and so on, right? However, I played dodgeball and spökboll in tournaments as a teenager, because just seriously in Sweden, right? Usually what you do, of course, is that if you have a tournament, right, tournament arc, yeah, but I'm making a tournament, right? What you do is that, let's say round 1, right? All the matches in round 1, we're gonna have 2 of these walls per field, right? In the next round 2, then we're gonna have this shit instead. We're gonna have some kind of weird cross in the middle, right? That you can fall over and so on. So it really is like, it's dodgeball kinda, but it's more anime, because they have like this changing the environment. That's what I mean, it's like Pokemon Stadium, you know, like it's changing the environment. Okay, now it's a water stage, now it's a fire stage, so it is changing it. And also, depending on the rules, but very similar to Swedish brännboll, which is baseball in Sweden, you also have style points usually. So for example, if you do like a cart flip and capture the ball, you get like a bonus point or whatever. You can freeze someone. I'm gonna make it up. This is seriously how it is. So me, one of my good friends when I grew up, he's a break dancer, and of course I am a martial artist, right? And I was doing all this martial art back then, those days. So we would jump around and do like cart flips and back flips and shit. We would like backflip from this wall and so on, right? And capture the ball, and we would do all this shit during the tournament. And they get like style, you get like bonus point for that. That's how it is. We are in Sweden. I think it's hilarious. Like my argument is why baseball in Sweden is more anime, right? It's because in brännboll then, similar rules, but if you capture the ball, you get points for that. I mean, straight up points. Like, you don't get points for running around. You get points for lyra, catching the ball. But if it's one hand, you get extra points, right? So it's harder to get with one hand than with two hands in typical Swedish baseball. But you get extra points with one hand, right? So you might attempt to do it with one hand because it's a style extra point. I'm not making this up. You get actual literal style point added to your total score in Sweden sports. I want to make it up. So yeah, Swedish dodgeball is crazy. What you usually have for a base rule though, is that you have the two fields, and then you have like a fence in the middle. That's usually the base rule. And you're free on the head and your head and hands, right? So you can capture the ball and so on. And then you have usually only one person behind you on their side. But then if you could hit them, die, right, you join the outside team. So eventually everyone is behind you, right? And only one on the opponent's side, so to speak. But you usually have some kind of fence in the middle. And you're allowed to like usually roll the ball as well, yeah. Like if it hits you rolling on the leg, you're also out. So you can't roll it then because you have a fence, of course, but you can like throw it over the fence and then roll it. So that's part of that to avoid just rolling the ball right on the ground and so on. So yeah, it's like a dodgeball with extra rules. Dodgeball with extra anime rules. But anyway, guys, subscribe please, slap us on, and I'll see you guys